You can't stop me, not even your bad breath. You can't stop me, 'cause my rhyme's so deaf. You can't stop me, not even when I'm calm. You couldn't stop me with the motherfucking nuclear bomb. You can't stop me. These lyrics still echo in my mind, evoking visions of Tupac rapping in the hallways of the Baltimore School for the Arts with startling conviction. This is where I first met Tupac back in 1986. My best friend at the school and fellow visual artist Gerard told me of this new kid who was entering as a sophomore, who was supposed to be a rapper. When he told me the kid's name was Tupac, I was like, his name is what? He simply laughed and shook his head, confirming that I heard him correctly. Gerard was familiar with the new kid's reputation as a rapper from his friends at Roland Park Middle, where he had graduated 1 year before, Tupac's arrival in '84, and his bus to and from his bus to and from the school for the arts passed Roland on his way. So he had seen the new student several times wearing a t-shirt with MC New York written on it, rapping among his friends. A lot of guys were rapping at that time, so I wasn't overly impressed. But there was obviously something about this kid that had caught Gerard's attention. The thought of a new rapper entering our ranks, particularly one whose reputation had preceded him, definitely sparked our curiosity and probably our teenage insecurities. In our first 2 years at the school, Gerard and I, along with a number of other black students, primarily guys, had dedicated a lot of time and effort to rapping. We were all driven young artists whose primary passions were for the talents that had won our admittance into the school. But as young black inner city boys in the mid 1980s, we were drawn to rap and the rapidly developing hip hop culture in general. In the neighborhoods at the time, all of the boys and girls were listening to rap music. Although it was still underground in Baltimore, rap was almost the only music we were listening to. And many of us at the School for the Arts, already endowed with a definite artistic flair and creative disposition, were trying our hand at this new popular new art form. We regularly tested each other's lyrical ability in informal contests held mostly outside the school building on the sidewalks of Cathedral Street and Madison Avenue, the two thoroughfares bordering the school located on the corner of their intersection in downtown Baltimore. Admittedly, these contests were born from regular joke-cracking sessions and maintained a lot of that feeling, focusing more on humor and insult than delivery, melody, and composition, the real measures of rap. Students with personal vendettas used this form to attack each other as personally as they could. Anything and everything was fair game, and whoever succeeded in embarrassing the other more was the victor. But steadily, all of the jokesters were brushed aside and the rappers took center stage. It was through the course of these impromptu sessions, known as the dozens, that we established an informal hierarchy among the rappers. And with this hierarchy, we were beginning the new year precisely where we had left off the previous spring. I was anxiously awaiting the opportunity to assert myself anew and gain new ground. I had written some new rhymes over the summer and was ready. I suspected the same of a few peers, but I knew I would catch others sleeping. The most popular rapper was still Zorian, another name that always struck me as funny and odd. Zorian was a short, stocky, dark-complected stage production student with thick eyeglasses who always tried to hang with the brothers in the breakdancing crew. But he didn't have the flavor or the skill, and they weren't impressed. So he concentrated on rapping, where in all honesty, the competition wasn't so intense. and he got to be pretty good using a lot of humor effectively in his rhymes. Although he had graduated the previous spring, he was still around the school a lot, visiting with friends and presiding over the dozens. The primary members of the rap crew in the school were Zorian, Ernest, Kendrick, and me. I was always a little closer to Zorian and Kendrick because Ernest tended to have a lot of mouth, kind of a braggart, who was comfortable talking about people. Gerard was also a part of the crew, but he was more a DJ than a rapper. None of the various other contributors to our sessions presented any real challenge. The arrival of the new rapper posted a the arrival of the new rapper posed a problem. Where should he fit in, if at all? I wondered before brushing aside the question. It was not my problem. He was the new guy and would have dues to pay. I could remember my first days at the school, the strange mansion-like building with its polished marble stairway spiraling upward from the front foyer, the intimate studios, winding basement halls, and grand ballroom hovering dreamily within some plane of reality far removed from any school experience I had known or even imagined. The shock, the touch of anxiety, the sheer newness, to become excited over the arrival of some greenhorn, some neophyte, would be ridiculous. Establishing one's self artistically in a student body so rich in talent spanning the full range of artistic pursuit was not easy. And regardless of the low buzz that had reached my ears, I knew it would not be easy for him. I first noticed the new student walking down the marble front stairwell talking with some of his classmates. He was dressed as if for church, with dark dress pants, a sweater over a dark dress shirt, and dress shoes. Him? I thought to myself as I looked at him through the door of my last period sculpture class. Gerard and I shared this last period class, really a studio, on Wednesdays and Fridays. And it was in this class that Gerard had been telling me more and more about the new kid every day. In fact, he had just finished a Tupac story only minutes before. The classroom was adjacent to the front foyer with an outside door that opened onto the sidewalk on Madison Avenue, right in the middle of the throng of students gathering in the lobby and outside the front door every day at 4 o'clock when everyone was dismissed for the day. Since students often stayed well after the end of school and into the evening to complete their assignments, teachers were not concerned with our taking frequent breaks and walking in and out of the studios as long as we got our assignments done. So Gerard and I talked freely during this time in the studio, catching up on gossip and current events as we worked. And we frequently took part in the end of the day commotion that erupted outside our classroom every day. It was at such a time when virtually the entire student body was passing our room that I saw Tupac walking down the spiral steps. I attempted to see before me the guy about whom I had heard so much, but I couldn't. This guy looked nothing like what I expected from all that I had been hearing. Apparently, Tupac and Gerard lived on the same side of town, though Gerard was farther out toward the county line, and caught the same bus to and from school. And according to Gerard, the seemingly quiet and guarded new kid blossomed into quite a different character once outside the school doors, serving as the life of the ride on most days. Causing ruckus on the back of the bus. I was a fool all through high school, kicking up dust. That's Tupac. Pain. Gerard would always come to class with a new tale of Tupac antics from the back of the bus, unable to help but laugh as he relived the scene. Man, he had us all dying. He would say, it was as if Tupac ran a regularly scheduled show every day, anticipated and even expected by all who would catch the bus. A lot of times Gerard would have a funny ass rhyme to regurgitate to me in class, the best he could remember. I would urge him to remember as well as he could so that I could hear the rhyme for myself. He had also heard Tupac rapping a couple times down in the basement by the cafeteria. He said he hadn't heard a great deal, but what he did hear sounded pretty good. As time passed, other reports of the new kid's rapping prowess began to circulate through the school. One student in particular, Herb, quickly became a bona fide fan, heralding the praises of his hero without shame or exhaustion. I began to find all of this talk a bit annoying when I next took note of the new curiosity. He was walking through the halls in blue jeans plastered with the title MC New York, outlined in thick black ink, filled in red. There were various other doodles on the pants that were more a haphazard work in progress than some finished masterpiece. With the jeans, he wore a cheap-looking, nondescript button-down, long-sleeved shirt and a pair of badly worn tennis shoes. His hair was cut into a two-level high-top fade with the small section along the left side a centimeter shorter than the rest, exaggerating a part on that side. He was talking with some other new kids, primarily white faces that I did not recognize. I figured they were classmates, most likely the theater students like himself. I could hear him speaking in a New York accent that, looking back, was probably more pronounced than it had to be. Still, I paid the new figure on the scene no mind. He was green and brand new to what we had been developing for some time. As far as I could tell, he was like any other new kid, reserved, unsure, and relatively quiet. Again, I didn't see before me the same kid that Gerard had been telling me about, or the kid about whom Herb had been so enthusiastic. But this would soon change. Though he began the year timid and uneasy within the new environment of the school, as awkward and clumsily dressed as the impoverished upstart adolescent he was, the new sophomore began to come into his own, outshining defiantly from within what was often laughably crude and uncoordinated without. In a natural way, he began to let go of the restraints upon his hungry persona and fell comfortably into his default cockiness, boasting a definite swagger behind those unthinkable clothes, causing one to look beyond them, barely noticing. He made friends readily, largely in the drama department at first among the younger students with whom he shared most of his classes. I would see him between classes and around the school with these kids and think nothing of him. But it was not long before he began to find his way into the older elite crowd, which boasted the most popular, well-established students in the school. The high-bred brothers and sisters of DuBose's talented 10th and their white counterparts. Kids with private school backgrounds from two-parent households in the most exclusive neighborhoods in and around the city. Many of these students were fellow theater majors. Their natural personalities slanted toward histrionics, propelling them to the fore of the social scene, more so than the students of any of the other artistic disciplines. But regardless, Tupac just seemed to float into and fit into their vibe effortlessly. In no time at all, he was a party to the bizarre hug fest I had witnessed with sheer awe on my first day at the strange school. Why is everybody so happy? I had thought to myself that uncomfortable day, genuinely confused. It seemed as though everyone were cousins or something. I had come from a typical Baltimore City middle school where wariness hung in the air and a tough persona was of strategic importance. What I saw on my first day at the Baltimore School for the Arts I had never seen before, but this new kid seemed to have quickly made himself at home. He appeared to be both comfortable and familiar. From humorous and clever small talk with a definitely unfamiliar bent in and about his theater workshops and classes, to far-reaching lunchroom conversation over a bummed cigarette (parentheses made more intimate for the gesture and sacrifice). This charismatic new kid was making some very interesting friendships and gaining access to the very top of the social strata, the kind of friendships one makes sharing smoke breaks with teachers in the cafeteria, as was still common at that time. Friendships that neither I nor the other rap enthusiasts had made in 2 or more years at the school. This was not necessarily because we couldn't. They simply represented another crew, another crowd of another ilk from another world. Yet this skinny, poorly dressed new kid was sauntering across some invisible bridge as if there were no gorge at all, and unsatisfied with his speedy ascent among the popular kids of the school. He soon turned his attention toward our corner of the small, encapsulated universe that was the School for the Arts. Only a month or so into the year came the challenge. Apparently the upstart was really feeling himself and wished to waste no time in laying claim to his rightful place within the rap hierarchy. In fact, he went straight to the top, brazenly throwing down the gauntlet before Zorion himself. The cocky little sophomore did not plan to fit into the hierarchy. He was going to walk all over it. Of course, this rocked the boat considerably. The day after the haughty challenge, Kendrick and I met up with Zorion and Ernest in the lunchroom. Tupac had heard Zorion outside and approached him. Zorion played it down, but the way Ernest told it, it was a cavalier attack upon all who represented the established rap talent in the school, a slap in the face. Tupac and Zorion set the date for the night of the Buick's Arts Ball. I was already focused on a big performance that Gerard and I would be giving that same night, in which we would become Run DMC for an evening. It was a big deal as the ball had never before included a performance of any kind, and some teachers and administrators were against the idea. However, after working our butts off and petitioning various school personnel, we were given the okay. So my attention was focused on the approaching performance, but Ernest was persistent with his alliance building pitch, and I agreed to say at least one rap in support of the crew at the battle. Later that day, as Gerard and I were up on the 6th floor, where the music classrooms were located practicing for the performance, Herb walked into the room and started talking about the battle. "Pac gonna beat y'all. Pac gonna beat y'all," he repeated a few times. "Y'all? Fuck you talking about?" I immediately replied. The whole battle thing was their beef, Tupac and Zorion and Ernest. I had agreed to lend some support, but I wasn't thinking about that. "Y'all gonna be rapping?" he asked. "Yeah, we gonna be rapping," I replied. But I was talking as much about the performance as anything. That's what I was hyped about. We had always seen our friends and others in the dance and music departments performing and shining before the school on stage. As visual artists, painters, and sculptors and such, we never had the chance to perform. This was Gerard's and my big opportunity to shine, to make a name for ourselves in the school. "Man, I'm telling you, man, he gonna beat y'all. He gonna beat all y'all." Herb persisted with an annoying smile. Man, whatever, man. Fuck you. Who the fuck is Pop? Fuck Pop. Shit, this is gonna be the shit. This Run DMC shit. I had heard enough about this dude. I hate to hear people all up on somebody's nuts like Herb was all up on Tupac's. Especially when I feel I'm good myself. Gerard and I blew Herb off and went back to what we were doing. The following afternoon, out in front of the school, I was caught off guard when I noticed a stringy new character walking directly toward me from the front doorway. I was talking with Kendrick. We were winding down from the school day, standing at the bottom of the steps by the railing. Without a hint of hesitation and full of arrogance, the new guy easily approached Kendrick and me with a particularly matter-of-fact expression on his face, stopping at the top step and looking down on us as if he had scripted it that way. He looked me dead in the eyes. So y'all gonna be in the battle? He asked in a voice that smacked of mockery. Immediately, I knew that Herb had given a report, most likely an inflated report, on our conversation from the day before. We hesitated for a split second, taken aback by his directness, but answered with a resounding, "Yeah!" Eyebrows furrowed and chest pumped out. His challenge was too public and too void of deference for us to even consider backing out, and I harbored no such thought until sometime later, when the big performance and all of its requisite parts and preparation returned to my realm of consciousness. Page 10, to be continued, MC New York.